into the room. You're free to just be you. Tell me your story, and we will go exploring. Let's explore together. Let's explore together.
Welcome back to Sac In The City. Again, we are here joined with Myki. Myki, hello.
Hello there.
We have dove really deep into the Me Too and Myki's experience with that. As we know, the Me Too movement is something pretty new that has recently come out, whereas Myki's experience with abuse happened a long time ago, well before Me Too. So diving back into that, we were talking about the fact that you are a well-rounded person. You've gone through the motions. You want to become a healthy person. You know, you are a healthy person, but you're constantly, working on yourself. A lot of times when somebody goes through abuse, especially sexual abuse, it makes them, especially when it's before they go through puberty and blossom into their own and get to know themselves, it can oftentimes stunt or hurt the growth of their sexuality. Do you feel that played a factor for you when you started coming into finding out who Myki was and your sexuality as you got older? Do you feel that affected it at all?
And are you referring to that I identify as being lesbian? Or just relationships in general?
Well, kind of both, but
Okay.
I think initially I mean more in a general sense.
Okay.
Where, maybe scared to be touched by someone, for instance.
Definitely I questioned, well, I should say not questioned, it was more of I found it difficult to enjoy it when I first started becoming sexually active because I wasn't sure the motive of the person I was with. I think I felt guilty because I thought that meant if I enjoy it now because I was a late bloomer. I mean, I didn't start sex till after high school, which I guess for a lot of people that's late. I know now it is. I don't know in the 80s if that was, but maybe it was. Not until after I graduated, and I guess I had these mixed feelings of feeling guilty for feeling good, because I think I triggered it to think that if I think it's good now, then I probably thought it was good then. So now, was it really wrong?
Sure.
Was I to blame?
Right.
Did I, turn them on to...
Do I owe them anything? Was there any of that for you that, it was expected or
I think
part of the package, if you will?
Especially because I mean, and then this goes into, I haven't had a lot of relationships. And as far as sexual partners, enough to know what I like now, and that was late in the game too, because I came out late. I married a man, and we both were innocent when we met. So we were each other's first, and then together for 11 years.
Wow.
Right. So had a kid. Right. So and there was and I credit him to being a really wonderful human, because I probably would have figured out that I was gay if I was given the opportunity that could happen growing up. I think that's what a lot of people from my generation had a hard time with, because we were raised that you would find, as a woman, the perfect man, get married, have kids.
Right.
End of story. That's what we were raised to believe.
Yep.
So I'm a tomboy. I love sports. I love riding BMX bikes. I love skateboarding. And I would be told by family members, elders, you keep that up and you'll never get a man. You keep playing sports like that and you'll never get a man. They're going to not think you're, because I'm not being feminine enough. So I think I was really I took that and I think I ran with it the direction that I probably wouldn't have by proving I could get a husband. And not only did I get a husband, I got a really great guy that was nothing like the men who had assaulted me.
Right.
I was also very honest with him about what I went through. So he was very understanding.
So you were able to connect with another person on that level, though, and be honest. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I think that really helped. And then, but I think because he was so awesome, and then we had a kid together, it took me that long to realize that instead of trying to find the perfect husband, I wanted to be the perfect husband, so to speak. Which goes, for that, and which is why I came out so late.
Okay.
Well,
and I was going to bring that up when you were like, well,
which is probably why all of a sudden I realized sex was so uncomfortable, because I just don't like it with guys.
That would make it really uncomfortable then. Yeah.
It just isn't a thing for me.
When you had asked me, you're like, okay, well, do you mean this in general or because I'm lesbian? And I was like, well, kind of both. I really initially mean this in general. The reason I kind of said both to that, though, is because there are people out there that have a misconception, if you will, or really just have no idea, but they think that if you are a lesbian who has been sexually abused in the past, you have chosen to be a lesbian because you're afraid of men.
Correct.
Because a man is who abused you.
Correct.
So you now have fallen into the arms of a woman because as a human, you still crave that interaction, but you are afraid of men.
Correct.
So I did want to tap on that aspect of it as well. Now, you kind of already answered my question because you did marry a man.
Yeah.
So clearly you're not afraid of men, right?
And also that same with that lesbians are men haters, but I don't know if that went out with the 80s and the 90s as well. I don't know. It's, of course I don't hate men. I just hate assholes.
And I mean, we all do.
That's not even gender specific.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah.
A jerk is a jerk is a jerk.
Exactly, yeah.
And interesting that you bring that up, because now in 2018, it's all about identity. I mean, that's so passé for saying lesbian, gay. It's now just identifying with pronouns. I mean, for argument's sake, when people need labels, I identify with his and her pronouns, and I identify with lesbian. But and I'll try not to go too deep. I know we're going to go long. I heard, I listen to Pandora when I'm driving, and I love listening to comedy stations. There were two comedians back to back that talked about something from the past that I found so eye-opening that fits in this discussion. They brought up two things. They were talking about reviewing the Jetsons. Do you remember the Jetsons? It's a cartoon.
Meet the Jetsons. Na, na, na,
and they were a few...
Wait, that was the Flintstones.
George Jetson. Same
songwriter.
Daughter Judy. Right?
Yeah.
So they were the futuristic family that lived in
Yes.
in the future. But the cartoon came out in the 60s, early 70s.
Oh, wow.
I think early 70s.
Lasted a long time.
Cartoon. What the person who was researching it found it interesting is that it's in Wikipedia apparently. It took place in 2065. Which, if it's 1972, that's the future.
Right.
But interestingly enough, the husband is 40, the wife is 33, but the oldest daughter is 17 or 16. So when you do the math, the mother was 17 and the dad was 23. And being that children take 9 months to grow, was she 16 when she got pregnant? Is that really where the future is at? Because that was the mindset of the early 70s. So in the future, the men are still older, the men are pedophiles because the women are still underage, and they're right. I thought that was an interesting thing. Another comedian talked about how toys growing up, girls had toys and it groomed them for being family. Boys didn't. And he brings up girls had vacuum cleaners and easy bake ovens and dolls from the time that they're toddlers. They're basically groomed to be mothers and housemakers. Boys get G.I. Joes and trucks and planes, so they're geared towards military, war, fighting, and guy stuff. That's very subliminal, though, isn't it? Because when you grow up with that, that's all you have to go by. and I mean, what is it now? Toys R Us recently, I think it was I know they or Target, were doing non-gender toys with colors, and they were no longer saying trucks go in the boy section, dolls go in the girl. It's like just they're toys.
Yeah.
And if a boy wants to have a Barbie and a girl wants to have a Tonka truck, who's to say that they can't? But see, in my generation growing up, you didn't. Remember what we go back to? You keep playing sports, you're not going to get a husband. It was grooming from the get.
You play with Tonka trucks as a little girl, you grow up to be a lesbian.
So now, fast forward, I am still working on an identity and realizing and relaxing about the fact that there shouldn't be labels with the fact that I wear makeup and I also wear men's cologne. I depending on the clothes, there'll be men or women's clothes, how they fit on my body and how it's shaped.
Sure.
My haircut 20 years ago, that's a boy's haircut. No, it's a fly haircut. End of story. Regardless of the person.
It is a fly haircut.
Okay?
We all agree.
Because now you've got people identifying them and they pronouns because they're non-binary. They want to be recognized as. It goes on such a level now.
It really does. But one thing
But is it sexuality?
I want to tap on.
And is it, how do they, right? So.
Because I had actually heard this recently from a lesbian acquaintance of mine that told me that within the lesbian culture, if you will, that a very feminine lesbian, which is commonly referred to as a lipstick lesbian.
Yeah, that was a phrase from the 80s.
Is a, I love the 80s.
Or 90s, actually.
But I love the 90s too.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that, the lipsticks or the more feminine lesbians are not accepted. That if you come out as a very feminine lesbian,
Was this recent?
Yeah.
Wow.
That if you, are very girly,
right.
That you will be somewhat pressured into being more masculine. And so I'm kind of wondering your take, because to be honest, I found it a little bit surprising.
Right.
I thought that we were
Past that?
Exactly. I thought we were a little bit past that. And so I found that really, really surprising. I've also known a lot of lesbians who are very feminine and never questioned their sexuality for a minute because of their clothing.
Correct.
And so I found that quite surprising. And so I wanted to talk to you about that and, see if, you have to be, societal standards of masculine or more dominant in order to have that label of as lesbian. What are your thoughts on that?
I tell you what, I interviewed a really amazing musician on my podcast a couple years back, and we actually discussed about gender inclusiveness and gender identity, because the question was, just like you said, sexuality, if that affected someone feeling that they're same sex because they were abused by an opposite sex person, does that also go to show that people of transgender, did they go about wanting to dress opposite? Like, let's say if it's a male identifying with female feminine side, is the reason they dress up as a female because that's what they were groomed by society? What if they could, and they think that's they're gay and have to be dressed as a woman versus couldn't they be a hetero male, cis male, and dress in dresses and still love women and still be a father to the children? And I was like, that's a really good question, because I'm sure that exists. It does in no way, let me say, take that away from anybody who identifies the way that they identify ever. I would never say that. But I tell you, the power of the influence of just social media in general, of the way society wants to depict the way things should be. The internet has been the greatest thing for just exposing people that are still stuck in that thought process. That's why I asked you, was that recent?
Yeah.
Because that right there makes me think of when we used to joke about how you could always tell how old somebody is when they come out by the way that they dress, because for some reason, this was a joke to like lesbians from the 80s, but they would come out and then be ever trapped in the fashion that they came out in and never, and then so they're called PE teachers, or they're called, whatever. I mean, that was a joke like within the community years ago.
You just reminded me of a PE teacher I used to have, though.
Right.
So, yeah.
Like, the lesbians were dykes, and they were the PE teachers, and they had the mullets, and they had the oh my gosh, the lavender, that's just the flannel and the boots. But that was such a stereotype, right? It was joked about. But to be honest, did they feel the need to masculine themselves out women because they were trying to be away from, because society says straight women wear makeup and are in skirts and have long hair and dress and smell pretty, and so if you think that means I'm straight, then I got to dress like this.
Right.
That probably happened. I went through that. But now I realize I'm me.
Right.
And I'm still a mother. Changing what society deems what a mother should look like, what a mother should look like. Right? Because what matters is how I raise my child.
100%.
And that I am making sure as her mother that she will grow up, become independent, can take care of herself, and make a difference in the world. That's the job of a mother. Has nothing to do with what I put on my body. Has nothing to do with what I put on my face.
So you dress how you feel.
Yes.
You're comfortable.
Which is not, and that's a totally separate thing with people who get operations because they feel they're in the wrong sex. That's something totally separate, and people seem to want to mesh it all into one ball, and it's not.
Do you feel that there's any pressure, though, within that community to, and again, we're going off of societal standards here. Do you feel like there's any pressure for lesbians to depict themselves with less makeup or,
I'm hoping not.
Yeah.
I'm hoping not, because makeup...
You've never witnessed it then?
Well, what? That it's no longer?
The pressure of, dressing more butch, if you will.
I haven't, because of who I surround myself with. It's who you surround yourself with, the where you grow up, the tribe you're with. You are the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Will the time ever come to where we're just attracted to somebody and we can come up to them and they can either say, no, I'm not into, they can just say, no, I'm not interested, and they don't have to say, I only date men or I only date women, or can't they just say no and that be okay?
Yeah.
I feel like the reason we have labels is to protect ourselves, and we have labels to identify because we have to know what's going on.
I would agree.
We have to know who you are. We have to know where you came from. We have to know what your agenda is. We have to know what your motive is.
Well, and I found it
That's what I
interesting
feel
too
like.
when you were talking earlier about the fact that, you liked sports and, you liked BMX and all of that.
I was really good at sports.
And I was thinking of a couple female friends that I have, really into sports. They're not ones for makeup. They don't put on a big fuss, and oh my gosh, they are so good at everything they do. And they are 110% straight,
They're just very athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, we should joke about with lesbians that we love tea. And if you would always see all kinds of sports things in our trunk of our cars, and that's how you knew we were lesbians. But this was just, I think, fun talk within us growing up.
Right.
This was before social media took over. This was before smartphones.
Yeah.
Because now everything is so, you have to, it's like you almost feel like you have to really watch what you put out into the world, because you're just going to get the backlash of a million people who have the touch to the keyboard. Because before, it just was our audience. It wasn't a million people that are the potential of a million people to throw their opinion on something when they haven't heard the whole story or they have a trigger.
A lot of triggers out there too.
So many triggers.
So
I'm hoping one day that they're just, I mean, as funny as things can be, that it just doesn't matter.
I hope so too.
If
because
I identify as a lesbian,
I
if
have
you
to,
identify as a cis female,
Yeah.
if,
Yeah, I agree. I think that we put a lot of pressure on those labels too.
we do.
I don't think it's necessary, because we put one label on somebody and it's just like, okay, you're a lesbian. Is that like represent 110% of like what you are? No. You love to work out. We've been talking about that a lot.
I love music because I work in the music industry.
Yeah.
I do love sports.
You love people.
I love people. I love dogs and animals.
There's a lot to Myki besides that.
Yeah.
Now, and it's true that our sexuality plays into a lot of things that we do. Don't get me wrong.
I think what helps with a label like that is
Yeah.
when someone who also is, it was labeled family. When I first came out, we called it family, like you can recognize family, having gaydar and family. I think when you have a label, those who want to have someone they can trust to go to, that helps them. I think with labels, those that fear someone like that helps them.
You know, and a part of that I get. I actually have a couple of friends of mine outside looking in. They look like a heterosexual couple. After hanging out with them a few times, the male half said, "Your family. I'm going to go ahead and come out to you." So it turns out that he has transitioned. He used to be a female. He now is a male.
Okay.
And I had said something one day that made him call me family, as you just mentioned, and to feel comfortable to come out and to let me know. I will be honest that I was aware before he told me. It was not my place to tell him that. That was for him to come out and to tell me, not for me to tell him.
And that's so respectful.
And that is totally the way that it should be.
Agreed.
But you know, from his perspective, I totally understand why he waited kind of for that flag, if you will, to go up before announcing that, because it's a scary place to go, you know, especially with a new friend, not knowing how they're going to react, somebody that you like.
Yeah.
Even if you are somebody that's comfortable being like, you know what, screw you then, buddy. It's still hurtful, especially when somebody rejects you and somebody that you know were really keen to before then. It can be really disheartening to make yourself vulnerable and have somebody slam a door in your face.
Absolutely.
So I definitely get that part. So you are remarkable. I think this has been established. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about what you're doing now. I want to talk about your involvement in the music scene.
Okay.
Your involvement with Women's International Music Network.
Yeah.
Yes. Takes me a little while to say that just because, well, it's
the acronyms are women, WIMN. So.
I love that. She broke that down for me and I was like, that's cool. Somebody's creative. Somebody's a thinker.
That's Laura B. Whitmore. That's not me. That's the creator and the founder.
That's pretty amazing, though.
Oh, yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, how it came to be, your involvement with it. How can we find out more?
Yeah, so the Women's International Music Network, created 6 years ago by Laura B. Whitmore. She's a phenomenal human. She's a singer, songwriter, plays guitar, journalist herself, writes for magazines like Guitar World, has her own marketing company, Mad Sun Marketing. And she, like many women have discovered, are barely represented, just scratching the surface of being recognized in the music industry. There are so many more women out in our industry that are musicians, singers, songwriters, sound engineers, CEOs of companies, owners of nonprofit organizations.
Absolutely.
But they're not at the forefront of the news, the media, the press. I mean, most recently, the Billboard, the top 200 billboards, 17% of those artists are female. But there's way more women. I mean, that's men. Men have just always dominated anywhere. But we're going to talk just about music. You know, less than 6% of women are acknowledged or dominated. You know, and you feel like when you look from now to all the artists that you recognize as female now, to like 30 years ago, it seems like it's more. And the internet we have again to thank for, because we have more access to music and news and knowledge at at our fingertips within a second. You know, in the 70s and the 80s, it was record stores and it was the radio. Mm-hmm. That's how you found your music.
Right.
That's it. I can remember having a cassette tape and waiting for a song to come on and taping it to have that song on the radio, right? And I'm young when this is happening. Versus now, you can just search it. You can just hit Google and boom. And you'll find whatever music. You type in a few letters of the lyrics. You type in the artist's name.
Yep.
And it's at your fingertips.
Yep.
But even with that, still not as recognized. So Laura saw a need to have a hub, to have a platform to be able to celebrate women in music. It, you know, to say, let's, and we have an award show, the She-Rock Awards, that we have every year at the NAMM convention in Anaheim in January. We're next month, in May, we do the ASCAP Expo, which is in Hollywood, and we do a She-Rock Awards showcase. Our website, we do articles on women. I'm one of the people who write the articles. We let you know about events coming up. We write blogs, you know, and the blogs are for anybody, but they definitely are are usually from like a female artist that's writing a blog will post it. So it's just, like I said, it's a platform. You know, do we welcome men? Absolutely, because we want men. Please use that male dominating privilege to say, yes, women rock. That's the best thing you can do.
I was just going to tap on that. So
Yes,
I hope that I was happy you brought that up because
women and those who identify as women. I love sharing this story recent. So the last She-Rock Awards we just had here in 2018, one of the many women that we honored was Melissa Etheridge. We gave her an award. And her acceptance speech made the crowd go, ha. She had said, and this was in
she was there?
Yes. Yes, she was there. She touched a shirt of mine. I'm ever washing it again. So she had said when she was pitching her album, I want to say it was the Yes I Am album. I don't think it was the one before, because the Yes I Am was when she came out, and this was the early 90s.
She touched your shirt?
Well, I got to hang out with her. So anyhow, I know. Trust.
Wow.
I'm never washing this shirt again. When she did her acceptance speech, this blew us all away. And this is the 90s, so this is less than 25 years ago. She's going to record stations to pitch her album, because that's what you did back then. You didn't have the internet. She would be told literally, thank you, but we already have a woman in rotation.
We've met our quota.
We've met our quota. We have a woman in rotation, but thank you. Now, this is the thing. I don't know if it was she was female, if she just came out, or if it was both. But either way, the door was shut on her. This is the 90s, people.
Yeah.
Are you serious right now? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is why the Women's International Music Network, thewomen.com, by the way, THEWIMN.com, exists. Because that should not ever be the case, ever.
Right.
Hopefully a day will come when it won't matter your gender and your music will just stand out for it. But right now, until that happens, we want to be a platform and welcome women across the nation, around the world. Let's share with the world what you have to offer, you know?
And I love that. And the fact of the matter is that it shouldn't be based upon your gender by any means. You got two legs to stand on. You're talented.
Yes.
You should be given a platform. Absolutely.
Would you believe there are women that actually to this day will be loading their equipment and they'll be mistaken for the bandmate's girlfriend? That women sound engineers, I'll tell you what, like the last She-Rock Awards, the sound was done completely by females. One of our sponsors and on our board is soundgirls.org, and they're based out of the Bay Area here in California. Cool. Carrie Kai, she's actually the sound engineer for Pearl Jam, and she's been doing sound engineering for years. And she's one of the ones that co-founded this organization. And they have events all across the globe for women who are into doing sound, because they still meet with that. They don't take them serious. That for some reason, if you don't have something dangling between your legs naturally that you came about by being born with, that somehow affects the way you hear music. I don't understand where that correlation comes from, but that kind of discrimination still exists.
You know what's kind of funny about that, though, is that there's always kind of like the stereotype that if you actually have a penis, you're a worse listener. So,
but
I'm just saying, like, pick and choose, people. Find what side of the fence to stand on.
I know,
here.
right?
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I really look forward to looking into that more and becoming a better supporter of that, because that's amazing. Absolutely.
Because subscribe to our emails.
I'm all about
follow our social media.
Absolutely. Well,
visit our website.
Yes, absolutely.
Help us help you.
And we're going to provide some information for this as well with this video, so you guys can check it out and can have easy access to finding it on your own as well, because that's huge. It's really, really important. So many talented female artists out there, such as yourself.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, I've been adoring this shirt for the last couple hours. I want to make sure you guys check it out too. Pizza rolls, not gender roles.
Girls Rock Sacramento. An organization here out of Sacramento, by the way, Girls Rock Sacramento, that I volunteer with.
I want to talk later about where I can get a t-shirt of my own.
Yes.
And I'm 110% serious. That's not for the camera.
We can hook you up with that.
I really want that t-shirt.
Absolutely.
And I might have a bidding war with you after the show. Maybe that one.
For this actual shirt.
Yeah,
here we go.
I'm wearing the t-shirt of a lady who was touched by Melissa Etheridge.
But bam!
That's what I would tell everybody too, because I love her. I've loved her for a really, really long time.
I told her and her wife, I love you so much.
Ooh.
And I love you, both of them, her and her wife. This
has been a cool interview.
Thank you.
I feel
really
like
enjoyed being here.
I mean, it was like a little heavy in the beginning, right? But so important to talk about. Like, we got to talk about those clouds, right? But
Yeah.
I love the note we ended on just like this telling the beauty that surrounds us. Like, that's amazing. So that's super cool. Myki, I really want to give you the final thought. I know we've covered a lot of ground today. What is it that you would like to say to the audience?
You know, I know people hear this all the time, but it's so true. You never know what people are going through. You never know where they've been. And this goes for those of us who also have been triggered or trauma. Just try to keep, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So make sure you listen twice as much as you speak. Because, like I say at the end of all of my shows, every day that you wake up, it is you who determines how your day will go.
Boom. I don't have to say, I'm not following that up. Myki, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for
It's
having
been an
me.
absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.